The publication that I've chosen is one that reflects my interest in urban Ireland, in the development of Irish cities, not least of the city of Dublin and Belfast. And I'm referring here to what are three of the most substantial volumes published in modern times by the Irish Manuscripts Commission, the Drennan-McTier letters. And it was in the 1990s that kind of combination of the Commission, the Women's History Project, and indeed the official commemoration of the bicentenary of 1798 that sort of brought together the funding to do a complete transcription and edition of these 1,400 plus letters. And it really is an extraordinary achievement to have gathered this material together within a relatively short period. Just let me give you a few statistics. There's well over 1 million words of correspondence between a sister and a brother. There are 3 volumes. There are 1,440 letters, or slightly over, depending how you count. And these volumes, I think, are about 2,000 pages, including their excellent indexes. The letters were very much taking up the correspondence of William in Dublin to his sister in Belfast, and they illuminated greatly the history of radicalism in the early 1790s. And of course, the William Drennan of the letters is the William Drennan who was one of the founding members of the Society of United Irishmen in Belfast, and particularly here in Dublin, and who was very much a familiar friend of the other figures of Irish radicalism and what becomes Irish republicanism. Why is this important? It's because you have here 2 persons of not great wealth, persons of high education, both sister and brother, who were very interested in public affairs and in their family. And the letters tell you a great deal about family and about health and child rearing and the intimacies of the household, as well as, if you like, the world out of doors, in the street, and indeed in the salon and in Parliament. And what's striking about both of them is the level of access that they had to people who are more important, more richer, more powerful than themselves. So they're very well informed, and they are very opinionated. So I just want to give you a flavour of the 2 of them talking to each other. I just took 1 year, and indeed one part of 1 year, to try and illustrate this. 1802. This is when Mattie, as she normally signs herself, is writing down to Dublin to her brother saying she's going to get her likeness painted. Somebody's going to do it as a gift to somebody else. She's worried about her appearance. When a woman grows old, all that can favour her appearance is good eyes, height, and dignity of manner, all of which I am bereft of. And therefore, if dressed even with the simplicity that I admire, my appearance, like most other little old women, becomes mean, and the more so if quite bereft of ornament. So she wants some ornament, please. But if you can get me any grave ornament to top my cap or turban, not an imitation of nature, rather rich than showy, or at least plain and genteel, I will not grudge the price. And then a little later she tells him about how their mutual friend, old Dr. Halliday, a key figure in the kind of radical Presbyterian Belfast of great age, had died. He'd been sort of slowing down, and he's now a man, I think, in his 90s. And she recounts the death. Now, in correspondence in that era, you often come across very detailed descriptions of the last days of some mutual friend. But this is how she describes Dr. Halliday to her brother. 3 nights before Halliday died, Bruce, not the mutual friend, Bruce and I played cards with him. And the very night that was his last, he played out the rubber. Now, said he, the game is finished, and the last act near a close. Bless the departing guest, sent his love to her sister, was helped up to bed, comforted his wife, spoke of the blessing her sister and William had been to them this last gloomy winter, and the rest you know. He left his stepdaughter Voltaire's works because he said she had taste to relish their beauties and sense to see their errors, and left a letter for his wife, which is said to be charming. Now, that's not that unusual in the kind of thing she writes. So there's a literary quality to it, and it's immediately bringing you into the realities of their shared lives. And then in a letter from Dublin, from William, when he's kind of talking almost to himself, you feel, on the page, saying, you know, if I die, what are the two books that have really been important to me? Now, die for nearly 20 years after he wrote this letter, but he's sort of musing to his sister. He says, the New Testament, yes, and the other thing, Plutarch's Lives. The book that first blew my infant spark of reason into a glow of enthusiasm, which will burn even in my ashes. A delightful, head-instructing, heart-inspiring, life-conducting book, which I used to read when a very child on the rocks at Craigavard, while the Carrickfergus bell across Belfast Lough in distant tolled, was wafted over the water, and the seals, the dogs of the rock from which the place is called, plunging into the smooth water. And then finally, a political comment from him to her, when they're both sharing their distaste, indeed disgust, at the way Napoleon is turning out. Of course, there had been enormous Francophiles in the early days of the French Revolution, but that was a decade earlier. Now, how different. And he tells her, I am now as much against Bonaparte as you can be, and have reversed his picture in our bedroom, placing his head where his heels were. And certainly I think his head in this late instance is not superior to that of Cromwell or any other usurper. All the Jacobins will rejoice, and the Royalists also, the first for his opening a prospect to a new revolution, and the last for assimilating himself to an absolute despot. And this is in relation to restoring slavery. The slave trade is restored in the French Indies, and the people of France seem as ready now to cry Vive le roi, with a change of person, as ever they were. And égalité is painted out over Bonaparte's chambers. So I think these are a wonderful encyclopedia for rediscovering the kind of middle-class world of both Belfast and Dublin at that kind of pivotal moment before the Union, just after the Union. Two people who I think one learns a great deal about, but I think it's probably the sister, Mattie, is the person that one would most like to meet again around a very modest dinner table.